Here comes a new challenger. You know it's going to be special when we have a guest with 3 names. And for the next Power Hour podcast, we've got Shawn Alexander Allen of Rockstar Games royalty. We're going to find out about his favorite games, the Beatdown City franchise, the upcoming Beatdown City Survivors game, and much more. Stay tuned. Keep it locked to the
Streamcast.
Yo, what's going on, everyone? Hello and welcome to the Streamcast, bringing people together through gaming since 2018, and we have no signs of stopping. Here on my left is my guest, Shawn Alexander Allen. How are you doing, bro?
Doing okay. Just a typical, maybe a little atypical day, but it's pretty good.
All right, cool. And for anyone out there who doesn't know who you are or what you do, would you like to give them a little bit of a preview?
One thing I think we didn't really talk about before is that I've been on this pronoun journey, so I'm on they, them these days. It's kind of a funny thing, like for some reason only he, him bothers me, like dude, uncle, dad, all that stuff, bro, all that stuff, non-binary terms to me. But for some reason, I don't know, it's been a lifelong journey. I'm a independent game developer, artist, writer, a lot of things, been around in the industry. I'm counting this as my 25th year in games.
All right.
With my first bit was as an IGN moderator, unpaid, back in 2000. So I've seen a lot between then and now. And I've been actually running NuChallenger this is my 13th year. I was born on August 13th, so 13 on 13th Street in Manhattan. So like 13 is a good number for me, and it's been a lot better than last year. It's been really cool that we're working on Beatdown City Survivors, working on a lot of unannounced things, kind of hinting at a lot of stuff, hoping we could get money for some of this stuff. It's been kind of an interesting year this year. Oh, and I also help run Black Voice in Gaming, which is a nonprofit for getting Black folks, like it's very specifically trying to make sure that folks get their games out into the world. It's not really a place where we don't really prep people for interviews. We don't do any of that stuff. It's not to work within like the trap of AAA. I know a lot of us have to or work for other people, but like the goal there is for like Black independent entrepreneurship in the game space, and leadership being I think an important thing, not just being part of a cog in like anyone else's thing. That's been very important. That's also been a big struggle recently, just because when you're struggling making games and you're trying to run this thing to help people make games, you run into issues. But we've been able to get people to GDC the last couple of years, get people to DICE the last 2 or 3 years, with like money in their pockets. So that's been good.
Amazing. That's really cool. And Black Voices in Gaming is how I came across your game. So I can't wait to get into all of that and more. And congrats on 25 years in gaming. That's huge. 13 years running NuChallenger. Those are a couple of really cool milestones, and hopefully those are nowhere near the end.
Here's hoping.
Yeah. So before we get into what you're currently working on, let's rewind it all the way back. It's the question I ask all my guests, and I can't wait to find out. What was your first ever game and console? What do you even remember?
Yeah, I have an interesting, like, I was like a kid who loved Nintendo, but like I saw Nintendo games in the world, right? Like I think I played them. I think my first game console, which I sort of don't count because it didn't last very long, was an Atari 7800 because it was on sale. I think someone was like, Shawn would like this, and it was like, no, I don't. I mean, actually, it was pretty good, but like it also just broke really quickly. I don't know what happened. It was like a 6-month time period. I beat Galaxian or Galaga on it, so that was one thing. But I still wanted a Nintendo, and so I still consider like the Game Boy my first like real console. I don't know. It's like the Atari. People have bad love for it. I'm like, as someone who grew up with it, I don't have much love for the Atari. Like, it always felt kind of bootleg of everything else. Nintendo was like, or actually, like, I went to camp and I used to play the Apple II computer games, like, and I loved those games. Like, there was Quest Pro presents like Spider-Man, Mysterio's Revenge, which was a first-person Spider-Man adventure game. There was like Conan the Barbarian. It was a puzzle platformer. Montezuma's Revenge, another puzzle platformer. Puyan. There were like so many games, and they had like Mrs. Pac-Man on there. I don't know. Like, so that camp experience was really where I think I got the most like game time. They even had a Mrs. Pac-Man machine, like up at
cool.
like, which and a Space Invaders machine, which is why I can always say Space Invaders sucks from the day it came out. Boring. And like I love the updated, like the really cool neon ones that they do, but I'm like, that game like was that and Pac-Man. Those games were sad to me back in the 80s. But like I think that's why I'm always like Mrs. Pac-Man. That game revolutionized everything because that made games fast and fun and interesting. But yeah, Apple II computer games, those were awesome. And yeah, I think I like wanted to play, like there was a kid, there was a girl who I would go to her house, and her older brother, I think, had a Nintendo, and he had like Ninja Gaiden, and I thought it was Ninja Dragon or something, and he like made fun of me and wouldn't let me play it. And so I remember seeing like Super Mario Brothers and Ninja Gaiden in like black and white at a kid's house back in like that, because I went to daycare, so it was like maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or something. And yeah, like I could see the game, but I couldn't play.
Yeah, look but you can't touch kind of vibes.
Yeah, man, big kids, they can be so cruel.
Oh yeah, you're not wrong. That's very interesting that you have no hesitation crapping on Space Invaders and Pac-Man. I hear you. I understand why. I just feel like it's very controversial. I'm very happy that you said that on the platform.
I don't know. It's something I just always think. I'm like, they led to something good, right? Like, true. Like I think Space Invaders, because I think like Pac-Man as like a concept, like again, Mrs. Pac-Man made it good, and then Pac-Man CE is like awesome. It's the same designer as Pac-Man, right? Like he saw speed as a thing he needed to do, made by like, right, like it was made by Midway, right? Like Mrs. Pac-Man was a mod that like got brought in by copyright reasons into Namco, and then it was like, oh well, the game's good now. Like Super Pac-Man was good. Like there was a lot of interesting stuff post Pac-Man, but Pac-Man 1 is like so slow, so boring. And Space Invaders is but like Space Invaders on the DS, like they have that the Space Invaders DX, I think. It's great. It's amazing. And again, it's like I think it's the same people. So again, they learned, like everybody made these really cool musical, like neon, brightly lit, colorful lighting, everything games much later. And also like Galaga, I think, like again, it came out after Space Invaders, and Xevious and a lot of those games, they just ate Space Invaders lunch like real quick. Like it's like yeah, I don't know. It's like how a lot of platformers existed before Super Mario Brothers, but then Super Mario Brothers like hit it at a level that like you're like, oh, yeah, this is transcendent. That's what I feel like. That's what I feel like Mrs. Pac-Man to Pac-Man was. It's like just night and day. Like
fair. No, I get that. I think that's a totally valid opinion. I hear it. So if we go from the Game Boy, the OG Game Boy,
OG Game Boy, I got but thinking about it a lot, it's actually funny because the Lego Game Boy that they're put out recently came with a cartridge for Link's Awakening and Super Mario Land, and those were 2 of the 3 games I asked for, and I asked for Kirby, the first one. And this was post Super Mario Land 2, because I still think Super Mario Land 1 is a better game than Super Mario Land 2. Super Mario Land 2 looks nice, but it runs really slowly, and just, I don't know, isn't as interesting. Like, it introduced Wario. It did a lot of interesting things, but the music, I like the old Nintendo style look of like Super Mario Brothers 1 stuff on Super Mario Land, and how it just had better music, I think. But I was like, I want that. I want the first one of that. And then Link's Awakening had just come out in 90, I think it was 94. And that's how late. I was like 12 when I got a Game Boy. Like, it took a really long time for me to get like a console. And then that was kind of funny because it steamrolled from there. I was like, just went downhill. I'm like, the next year was like, oh, I get a Super Nintendo, because it was years late, right? It was cheaper, and we were very poor, but like I think my aunt and my mom's best friend rather, and my grandmother, who didn't care for my existence as like a biracial black kid, but still gave money to our family as a white lady in from the South. I guess somehow we got money, and then she was able to buy it. My mom was able to buy me a Super Nintendo, and that came with Super Mario World, Mario Kart, and then Donkey Kong Country. So that was like back-to-back years. And then the N64 came out, which my mom got on disability, and then she was getting a little bit more money. So she like saved that money. It was like, here, I want to buy an N64. So it was like weird. I went like 12 years, and it was just like that. And then, the N64 is kind of where I'm at today. Like a best friend / business partner of mine who I've known since we were 14. He and I would talk about Mario 64 around the lunch table. And years later, I introduced him to Smash Brothers. He became a Smash competitor. And now we're kind of working together a lot these days. So it's video games can be, I don't know, very important.
Absolutely.
Just like it was like shared culture, but it was shared interesting culture, because like going to school at Brooklyn Tech, like it was, I existed on a different end where I saw video games mostly from like the black kid in the city side, and less from like white suburbia, which is what we get sold on like 80s video games.
Huh.
Like the N64 kid, right? Like he's in a house.
Yeah.
Like he's in a house in the burbs. He's like freaking out. And I'm like,
yeah,
I was a kid who survived the 80s, who survived like seeing my mom almost get thrown down by the stairs, and then she like by like a drug addict who was just like high out of his mind, to her being like, I need to buy this kid this N64 because they've lived a hard life. And it was like and now I got this disability that like all of a sudden, like going from welfare to disability, you're like, wow, look at all this money. But it was I very much am thankful that she saw fit to like really put in that, because again, that changed my whole life and just gave me something to talk about at the lunch table.
That's adorable. I think that's just an example of unconditional love from a parent, always wanting to pour into their child, and we've seen the fruits of that labor, manifest in this career that you've had, and that's something I can resonate with as well, in terms of I guess that shared interest, that point of resonance with a friend blooming into something beautiful, like a business and a partnership. So I definitely know where you're coming from. I think it's very cool that you've been able to follow your passion and essentially monetize it. Let's go from the OG Game Boy to your favorite games.
Oh yeah.
From
this is always a trip up.
What are your 5 favorite games?
I don't like being put in a corner. I've been thinking about this. I'm gonna list 5 games. I don't know if they are all my like top 5 favorite, but they are ones that are very important to me. Like I always like how was I gonna leave out Link to the Past? Like I'm like Super Mario Brothers 1, Street Fighter 2, Killer 7. I think Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, like not even Link's Awakening DX, like just the first one, because that one had like a glitch where you could hold the select button when the game is transitioning and you could warp across the screen. So you could glitch the hell out of that game, and they fixed that glitch when they made the DX version and everything. But like that was like, I don't know, that gave me so many good memories. And excluding my own video games, I guess I don't know. There's because there's like Fire Pro Wrestling that was like core to like very important to me, like Fire Pro Wrestling D on the Dreamcast. And that's why it's always hard because I'm like I feel like Super Metroid's in there somewhere. But yeah,
I mean, fair enough. Yeah, please go ahead and name all
say
the honorable mentions.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like that's like
time.
that could be like. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard because it's all about like I like Super Mario Brothers 1 for its aesthetic values. I think it's like kind of a perfect video game in so many different ways. Street Fighter 2, similarly, I think it's a perfect fighting game. Like I think that game was a game I saw in arcades and I just wanted to play. Like barely had money. My mom gave me 50 cents one time. I picked Chun-Li, got my ass kicked, and picked E Honda. I think I picked E Honda, got my ass kicked by Chun-Li, and then picked Chun-Li and got my ass kicked by E Honda. And I was like, oh, well, cool, I'm out 50 cents. But my friend had it on Super Nintendo, so we played that game to death, like to a point where I probably should hate the game, but I still appreciate it from even studying it at its baseline. Oh yeah, like Killer 7 is are you familiar with Killer 7?
I'm not, no.
Killer 7, it's on Steam. It came out on the GameCube and the PS2. But like the GameCube one's the good one because like the GameCube was really good at cell shading, like and had good, the GameCube they made it for GameCube and it was put on PS2 to make money because GameCube M-rated games, but it was like a game about 7 personalities and like one person's brain, and they're basically assassins, and it deals with like Japanese American relations and like post World War II, and deals with a lot of stuff. It's really interesting. There's like I recommend anybody just go look up the Russian roulette Killer 7 scene because that game has like Black, Mexican, Puerto Rican like characters in it too, made by Suda51, who's like one of my like me and him got to meet many years later, and but then they finally, and I remember being like, yo, is Killer 7 gonna come out on anything else? And then eventually like Marvelous snatched it because Capcom put it out originally, so they snatched it up so it's on PC, and because it's cell shaded, it's beautiful at any resolution. Like it's amazing looking game. It looks brand new to anyone who plays it today. Link's Awakening, yeah, that was just part of my top, one of my top games. It was just something that I immersed myself in. Like, man, that's like I think about like Final Fantasy VI. Like Final Fantasy VI is obviously one of my favorite games of all time. Super Metroid. I still remember going down the elevator in the Norfair, like, and you hearing like operatic chants happening for the first time in a video game. You're like, what is this? Yeah, that's why it's hard. Fire Pro Wrestling, like D on Dreamcast, like that game legitimately saved my life. But I also just love those games. Like like a lot of people fall into like, it's always weird when people say, oh yeah, you could be like radicalized on the internet. I'm like, in the internet of the early 2000s, I, for whatever reason, decided to buy a $10 Dreamcast game and then dive into that community. And that's like, all my friends had gone away to school and I was feeling very sad. And I just threw myself into like this wrestling game that people really worked on making guides for and doing all this stuff, and spoke a lot to like, community. Yeah, that's why I'm always like even like Final Fantasy VI, I'm like, that's like a game that's like, I feel like it needs no introduction. It's just one of my favorite games of all time. That always oscillates with Final Fantasy IV. I don't know, because those two came out. There's just a lot of stuff. That's why I'm always like 5 is hard, because I'm like favorite in what capacity, right? Like and I feel like I always write Killer 7 something I always mention. Killer 7 Fire Pro is because Killer 7, a lot of people don't know about it. So like my homie Jordan Miner just put out his video like Game of the Year book, and I wrote about Killer 7 for that. And then there's some modern games that like I'd say like one of my favorite modern games is The Friends of Ringo Ishikawa, which I always got to give a shout out to. It's It's a beat 'em up RPG, kind of like River City Ransom, not turn based, but it's made by a Russian developer, and so it's like it's got this Japanese aesthetic, but like it feels like Russian existentialism. Like it's just like it's about being in school and your friends growing up around you, and maybe you being kind of stuck and expecting your friends to always be there for you and them not. And what happens when so it's a game where you fight a lot of people, but also you hang out with people. It's like funny because it's like people are like, oh, GTA, blah blah. I'm like, you go on dates with this, you go play pool with people. It's like 2D side scrolling. You can go do dips at the playground. Like they don't tell you can do dips at the playground. You just basically, if you go to the playground and you find the bars, you can press a button, you start doing dips, and that gives you experience. It's a little convoluted, but it's actually kind of cool because it has that very old, like, what if I do this in the environment that we've been kind of beaten out of because everything is so prescribed. Like everything has a button over it, like press A to do X, press da 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 da. And that game truly exists as like you can choose not to go to school, you can choose to go to school. Like there's certain things that happen at certain times. I don't know. There's not many new games that I would say are in my top, but that's one of them, definitely.
Very cool. I love that almost choose your own adventure aspect to video games. Like they kind of give you the bare bones of how to play, and then they just let you figure it out. Kind of reminds me of D&D a little bit in terms of here are the options. You got these two options, but how about this third option? If you think, or if you see, oh, this is actually here. What if I do this instead? I like that aspect of seeing gamers actually figure out stuff in the game that isn't necessarily explicitly explained to them. And I think that's something that is very much so a classic trait in terms of like the older gens, and not so much something you see now. Like you said, everything's explained via tutorial. There's a button prompt, or you are spoon-fed in a way. But I do kind of miss that kind of, hey, not hidden mechanics, so to speak, but what happens if I do this kind of thing. I think that's very cool. And I mean, I like your list. I think it's very cool to hear people struggle as well to put a top 5 list, because it's not meant to be, oh, I've got this spreadsheet and I've ranked them all by points. It's just meant to be like, subjectively, what speaks to you as a gamer? What do you like? What have been games that have transcended gaming for you? And I've not heard anyone describe Street Fighter 2 as a perfect fighting game, but I think I agree. It is the one game that I don't think anyone needs to understand to be able to play. Literally,
people still play Super Turbo to this day, and that's a game that I never really played it much. I like Street Fighter 2 hyper fighting, like Turbo. That was kind of like, I felt Super took things in a certain realm that I was kind of like, like even changing the announcer, like the all joke, it's like Big Bird, right? Like it's like now it's like round 1, fight. And but like in the fighting game community, they call him Big Bird, like the announcer. And I'm like, why did you change the announcer? Like, but they had to make it feel new, right? Like, and they added all these new animation frames that don't match up with the old animation frames because they just drew new ones. And, you know, like Super Street Fighter 2 was actually kind of a rushed game because they were just like, wait, we're being pirated too much. We got to get something out. And Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo was, again, another rush game. Although I still think it's interesting that Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo introducing Akuma basically legitimized an April Fool's joke from EGM. So that's something that's very memorable about that, was that like EGM basically said, hey, there's a character named Sheng Long that you can unlock. And then Capcom was like, wait, now we need to do this actually. and then they made him. And that's kind of interesting that one of the biggest magazines in the world got to push the hand of one of the biggest arcade developers in the world. And then like imagine the timeline if Akuma had never come to be. Like how many young black folks wouldn't have like those ball necklaces around and just be doing the Like,
Yeah,
it's very important to like a certain generation of people that just
absolutely.
got weight, because he's basically adding a Dragon Ball Z, like a dark Dragon Ball Z character to Street Fighter, which was almost already Dragon Ball Z in
Mhm.
terms of just like the whole fight to win, right? Like, and that everybody loved the blonde haired guy who could light himself on fire, right? Like, you know, it's a. But yeah, it was super. Again, Street Fighter 2 was like the beginning of that culture, right? Like there was Street
Yeah.
Fighter 1, but nobody. Again, Street Fighter 1's a terrible game, awful, and everybody agrees.
I agree. I
Like,
agree.
I tried playing it, and it's unplayable. Like it's like
so bad.
it's so bad, but it created this beginning of like the seeds.
Yeah.
And then Capcom legitimately like was like, oh, we're gonna make this actually good, like really good, like establishing norms in a genre. And also that was during like SNK splitting from like, because a lot of the folks who made King of Fighters, or not King of Fighters, well, King of Fighters, but Fatal Fury, right? Fatal Fury came out the same year as like Street Fighter 2 because it was made by people who worked on Street Fighter 1 who were like, oh, we're going to go over here now. So it's kind of funny that those two games are similar, but like Street Fighter 2 like set a certain cultural zeitgeist in motion, whereas Fatal Fury did not. Like it was just a little overcomplicated in all of its designs. Also, Andy Bogart is like a bad character. Like, as like just trying to make him a main character, he just looks like a B tier character.
Oh.
Like he's got like long hair. I don't know. It's like, you know, like Ken and Ryu like just look like both A tier characters, and Terry's great. Andy's like womp womp.
I think convoluted was the word you used. I think sometimes you can overcomplicate, especially when it comes to building that main character. You put way too much into them, and you end up spoiling the broth in a way. Whereas I think, like Ryu and Ken, the simplicity in their designs really went a long way in working to, again, resonate with a lot of players. And I do agree with you. I think Street Fighter 1 is a terrible game. I don't acknowledge it as a Street Fighter game. I always think Street Fighter 2 is Street Fighter 1, even though I say Street Fighter 2 when I say it. But Street Fighter 1 is like a necessary evil that you need to have so you can get Street Fighter 2 and the massive franchise that it I guess yielded. So it's one of those things for me where it's like I don't like it, but
it's the Pac-Man of Street Fighters.
There we go. That's the tagline of this episode. So this was really enjoyable, going through a little bit of a window into your your early gaming life. But what was that light bulb moment? What was the pivot when you went from enjoying these video games to going, oh, I'd like to make these games. Oh, I can make these games. What was that moment for you?
So I think it's interesting. I've worked on game related stuff for a very long time. Back when I was 12, they had these Batman the Animated Series toys in the McDonald's Happy Meals, and I couldn't afford McDonald's, but I had a hookup in class who, if I gave him $1, he could get me the toy. So I bought the toys for that, and there was like one that was like a Joker car that like, and there was a Batman figure. There's a few figures, and I remember I like actually designed a 2D platformer that had a bit of like the Ninja Turtles 2, like the false Shredder boss. I made a false Joker boss. I just drew maps because I had Nintendo Power magazines at home, and I had like some of the guides occasionally. Like that was the thing. Like we could afford $12 a year for me to read about video games, but couldn't really afford like the $50 it would cost to buy video games. And so that's what always, I think, kept me entertained, like reading like Nintendo Power guides, like the Ninja Gaiden 2 guide. I recently rebought it because I think I like lost all those magazines or got rid of them, but like that guide has a comic book in it that like explains so much about the story. I actually didn't play Ninja Gaiden 2 for a very long time, but I lived it through this guide. So I like knew the story, and I like would look at the maps and look at enemy placement. So that's how I started drawing my own maps. I made a character that was like, I drew him to be pixel art. I drew everything in the comic to be pixel art, despite like not actually doing it on a grid. Like I made everybody just kind of like, I made basically a because I made lots of comics, and then I made this, but this one character would always have that, except his villain wasn't like a video game character. His villain was like a plane that he had to fight, like a jet that could throw sonic booms. Yeah, I mean, I was like 9 or I always would make comics, and then when I was 15, I was working on a comic, and I just decided that comic needed to be interactive. And again, this was 97. So like still a long ways from really understanding. And I started doing, I was doing Flash animation back in those days also, since like Flash 4. Since Flash doesn't exist anymore, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Been using Photoshop since I was 14, doing animated GIFs back then, and kind of doing Flash interactive thing. I used to make this joke Pokemon game where we ripped sprites via emulator to make like these like little Pokemon animations that were like, you could highlight over things and tell a story. It was basically, there was just a story that you could tell, and you had to pick the options you need to pick. But it was interactive. It was interactive fiction, basically. You just only had, the other options would tell you to go pick the other one, or they would say something funny. So it was, and but yeah, that one comic when I was 15, I was like, this needs to be turned into a game. And then I actually spent a lot of college trying to figure out like pixel art and a lot of these things, and none of that really went well. Then I like the whole indie game blow up in like on Xbox with like Xbox Live Arcade was very transformative. I went to a party I think in 2010, 2011. That's where I met Suda51. That's where I met Nathan Vela, who was one of the founders of Capybara Games, now Cappy. Nathan, went on to be like one of the heads at Annapurna, and now he's doing his own thing. This guy, Jake Casdell, who used to work at Sega, who worked on like he was like the white guy who worked on Space Channel 5. And he was like, but he was now in America working on an indie game that turned out to be called like Skulls of Shogun, with a friend, Baruch Pfeiffer, who's still a good friend of mine today. Seeing these folks at this party, like this was during an E3 one year. Might have been my second E3, because my first one was 2003 when I was a retail employee, and then my second one was at Rockstar, so I could just go wherever I wanted, right, and do whatever I wanted. But like this party like introduced me to that, like brought me close to the independent developers, right? Like I was like, oh, this person worked on a thing on the DS that I have played. Like, that's cool. So that really put me in the mindset of, I want to do this. And I kind of started mocking up art and like actually really working to get better. I think I worked on a whole other game too, like a whole other game concept. I was like, I need to simplify all this. That's what became Treachery and Beatdown City.
I think that's very interesting. Especially having the sense, the wherewithal to be like, I need to simplify this game. I think a lot of people, when it comes to their first projects, they do tend to overcomplicate it, like we were talking about earlier. So that's very cool. I think I've not heard anyone explain enjoying a video game through other means than playing video games back in the era of Nintendo Power. So that's a unique story. I think a lot of that builds to what you enjoy in video games, and I think has essentially just ensured that you were always going to be on this path, if that makes sense. I think it was more of a matter of how, but the what and the where you'd end up, it was always going to be this. From what I can tell, video games has always been a part of you, and nothing has ever really swayed you away from the path. I think that's very cool.
Well, comics were, again, like, I didn't have a system until I was 12, really. So like I
Mm.
like looked at magazines about comics, but about video games, but I also read comics and I made comics. Like that was like what I wanted to do, because also I didn't know video games were a thing you could do. Nintendo was in a faraway place called Redmond, Washington. and Digipen, their school, when I was choosing to go to school, like that was like, again, in Washington, you would need a car. I'm like, I can't afford a car. I can't even really afford to go to school. So then Full Sail was in Florida, and so I ended up going to school for graphic design initially, because like that was the thing, like web design, like those were the two things I could do. Like I could do comics and I could make web stuff, right? Like I could make Flash things and I could design UI and make things in Photoshop and make animated GIFs. But like games back then, especially, were so yeah. Like I even forget like that I made stuff in Mario Paint, right? Like I made animations in there and I would make songs in there. I do a lot of that stuff, but none of that stuff could become like a video game. It could just be like a short film. So like,
Right.
Film, animation, all that stuff, that's actually more what I wanted to do. But that's it. Once I finally figured out how to make video games, then it was like, oh, okay, well, this makes a lot of sense. Like that's actually what got me into Rockstar, was because I went from graphic design to computer animation, which was fancy name, or computer art, which was a fancy name for just making 3D animation. And they really only focused on character animation, but they didn't really teach us modeling of buildings or anything, and we had to learn it all ourselves. But I graduated from school with a short film, and Rockstar had a job posting for a game capture artist, which is like someone working on trailers. And so that's how I got that job without like having like game making expertise, really. Like
Yeah. Do you feel like, maybe not intentionally so, do you think video games were kind of gate kept in a way? Because I think that's a running theme in terms of a lot of people from our era not realizing that video games was a viable career path. Do you feel that gatekeeping worked against you in there?
I mean, it just wasn't happening where I was, like, I mean, I I did a whole talk about this about like back in 2013 about like where I studied kind of why there weren't Black and Latino folks in the games industry. And you look at hip hop, and hip hop came from, like, a lot of those folks were technical magicians, right? Like they were coming up with, like, there's a guy, DJ Plummer, who was a hip hop pioneer who went off to help make Unix, which, if you look at the circle, ended up making iOS, right? A thing, like, right? Like, because Unix, then Mac OS is built on Unix, and then you have iPhones, right? Like, so there was a Black hip hop pioneer who was integral to making the iPhone, if you think about it on like a long enough time span. Or I mean, I would really love to study more like when they talk about Jerry Lawson a lot, I'm just like, why don't we talk about the lack of other people around Jerry Lawson? Like, it's a little weird that everyone just keeps bringing up the one dude. I'm like, how about we talk about, also, they don't talk about the fact that like Jerry Lawson's like contributions actually helped Activision tank the American games industry. And then Jerry Lawson lost his whole business because of Activision, who then walked away basically unscathed and are, and now being bought by Microsoft, which cut thousands of jobs from the industry. So you just see like this like long enough thing where it's like, there isn't enough discussion. I would love to hear more discussion. I know there was like very real, like there was like real percentages of like Black folks just didn't have computers in their homes typically, because that just wasn't, it was a big, and it's not just Black folks, but like I feel like on a, there's a certain level of like you, like when you're like, if you're in New York, right? Like most of the Black and Latino folks in New York are civil service workers, right? Like they don't get to be artists. They don't get to be these other things, because even the movie Wild Style, which is about like, you know, it's the first like it's the fictional like graffiti hip hop movie, basically, where it's a big movie for the culture that had actual graffiti artists like playing characters in it. In that movie, part of the point is the main dude who's a graffiti artist gets told by his brother, who goes to the Navy, why don't you get a job, bro? And because he's a, you know, a Latino kid, right? Like, and then what happens? Like, there's like, and then you see like real world graffiti artists like Scheme, like he, like a black kid who is in Style Wars, the graffiti documentary, talking emphatically about his art. What did he end up doing? Went to the Navy, went to the Army, right? Like, and because you had to get a job at some point. And, you know, he comes back and he's doing art. He's doing stuff in galleries and stuff now. But, you know, it's like, I think video games, as much as any other technological endeavor, were just like, it was, I still don't 100% know why, but I think there was like a big culture problem. You know, like the only reason hip hop exists is because there was a blackout in the Bronx, right? Like it was existing, it happened, but like it blew up and became a thing people could do immediately overnight because they stole all their equipment from the place that they needed. Like they needed the turntables, they needed all these things. It was a big technological endeavor to have a rap group, right? Like, and so all technology, like, I mean, imagine if there was like a blackout in like computers, right? But like it wasn't as much of a solved thing. Like programming is like such a weird art form, right? Like it's something that I never understood as a kid, and I no one ever really taught me what any of that meant. They never taught me that like programming, like I love English, like I love language rather, and they never taught me that like programming is how you use math as a language. Like you can tell stories with math through programming. Never got taught that. So, I mean, I'm a visual person mostly, you know, I know some programming like HTML and stuff, but imagine if I'd been taught that, that maybe I would have thought about it differently and kept going in that direction. But yeah, I think it's, you know, it's like getting these access to these engines, like, it's like I get into these arguments with people who want to say like, you don't need an engine. And I'm like, man, like engines are what changed so much. Like it changed my life. Like being able to use Game Maker. That was the first engine that I like really could kind of understand. Finally figured out like it was simple. Drag this here, press the left key. I could move the character left. I started that on my own. And I was like, wow, like, this is teaching me something for like the first time in my life, because I need to be able to make stuff happen immediately. That's like something in my brain. And I was like, oh, and then I've dug into Construct. I've done a little bit of Unity. I've done a little bit of Unreal, and Game Maker, like just having that like sparked me being like, oh yeah, you can do this. And that was still, that was around the same time that I was working on like Treacher and Beatdown City when I was starting that up. But yeah, doing that talk really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Like black kids are just not allowed to make art for the most part, right? Like, and like again, like hip hop was like criminalized, right? Like they first took away, like one of the reasons why graffiti art existed was because there were no art classes for kids to do. And so where'd you learn art? On the streets. And then these folks would put their lives in danger to put their stuff on trains because that was their art gallery. Yeah. And then the cops were like, "Oh, we're gonna put you in jail forever," right? And it just became really scary. And the city just spent millions of dollars to fight these kids, right? Like it's just so when you look at it like that, like I feel like the video game thing, like again, when you're living in a civilized, I don't know. Also, you just think about like black kids where they had to grow up in the States or outside of the States. Like I looked at a lot of like video game stuff was very focused around the white, like on like the white, brilliant whiz kids, like in the UK, right? Like you could see these videos of like the kids who made their games for like Amstrad or ZX Spectrum, or whatever, all those things. And you're like, these kids were actually making tons of money too, like really quickly. You were seeing the same thing that you were seeing in like 2020, where they're just over investing in like this
Yeah.
prodigy who makes kind of mid stuff, and then everyone buys it because that's all that's available, really. But like they got really lucky. Everybody in the beginning of the industry got lucky. Like Yoko Shimomura, like she said she didn't know how to make music digitally when she got the job at Capcom to make Street Fighter music, like, and then she just was like, oh, I guess I gotta figure this out. So it's like if you weren't in the right place at the right time and you didn't know it was possible. So it was like the people who, I don't know, again, it like I say I'm in games despite everything, because like once I got that idea, like that I was like, oh, we're gonna do this, I have not let it go. And it's like I've let go of every other art form in my life for a while because of one reason or another, and I'm coming back to all of them. But video games was the one that was like, oh, there's nobody that looks like you. Money is almost impossible to get. There's like you can't get a job, this and that. And like I applied to Rockstar 3 times before I got my job. Like I applied for a PR position, a marketing coordinator position, and the game capture position. The PR one, I got through multiple interviews, and then the thing I did not know was that the department fell apart soon after I had had my second interview. And the guy who had been my first interview, he actually left the week after I started, and he saw me the day I came in. He was like, "Hey, Sean, what are you doing here?" I was like, "Oh, I'm doing capture." He's like, "Oh, cool, great." I'm like, could I add you on LinkedIn? He's like, "Yeah." And then like a week later, it's like leaves Rockstar, and I'm like, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know going on. I applied for marketing, never heard back. I got very lucky that Capture needed me. They needed a person who had like filmic background. They were also secretly trying to replace the people that were getting paid way better than us, and they paid us really badly. It was still better than retail, but it was not a lot if you count living in New York, or you count the same position at other companies. Like Blizzard, the position was like 2.5 times the pay, which would have been nice. Would have been nice. I got out of savings coming out of school, but yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, this is part of why like I focus on Black adults trying to do games as their thing, is because like I was 30 when I started out on the NuChallenger path, right? And you know, we wanted to talk about like what sent me down this road, right? Like, I mean, Rockstar's challenging. You don't want to talk too much about them. I got a lot out of it. I made a lot of great trailers. I worked with a lot of great people. A lot of those people are not there anymore. Some of those people are. I helped train a person who is one of their lead cinematic artists. I trained him how to be a human being at work, because that's my biggest thing, is like, you got to treat people like people at work. You can't be snitching on people. You can't be throwing people under the bus. You got to be a good person to other people. Like, I've been a manager for a long time. I was a manager at GameStop. I was a manager at EB Games. I was a camp counselor as a teenager. So being in charge of people's weirdly been my thing for a very long time. I was part of the teen leadership program. Like, so I kind of had to learn this on my own, and I've had to learn it, keep learning it, especially into the independent side of things. But yeah, Rockstar was interesting. I put out a lot of cool stuff. It was a lot of hard work. The name carried me a little bit. It helped me get my first bit of money, though. So like PlayStation Mobile was a thing once upon a time, and we got our first bit of money from Sony for PlayStation Mobile to work on their half-baked platform that ended up getting killed. But it still got money in our pockets, right, to like make a thing. It got money to the programmer, Manny, to get a laptop so that we could work together when we were outside. And that was the thing, like even having 2 laptops in a cafe, we couldn't do that. Like we didn't have like multiple G's. Like I was using my ex-wife's when we were together. I was using her laptop, and then I would hand it to Manny, or Manny would come over to my house and then work on the laptop while I'm on like my computer. But like it was like going to a cafe and working together was just not something we could do initially until we got that bit of money that could go towards that laptop. But yeah, like it was in 2012, I was just kind of tired of AAA. And I always tell people, like, I heard Dead Prez and Saul Williams, like full albums, like Dead Prez, Let's Get Free, and Saul Williams self-titled albums, which these albums are like revolutionary speak through and through about like Dead Prez talks about the prison state. They talk about how schools teach you lies. They talk about the system basically being out to get black people. And Saul Williams talks about other things like also Dead Prez talks about discipline and happiness and eating well. Again, like that album it's a perfect, and Saul Williams talks about like being good to other people, but also like gets really real about like Black History Month and all sorts of things. And those two albums made me look around and be like, I can't be in a company like this anymore that employs like 6 black people, that none of them are in creative control. And I had to figure out my way out. And thankfully PlayStation Mobile helped me like, because I didn't have money to leave. I basically had to do severance into unemployment into PlayStation money, like, which again was not much money. For the first 6 months of stuff, and that was like very brutal.
I can imagine it's not a smooth path you've been on for the first part of your gaming life or life in general.
Yeah, it could be worse, but this is what I say. This is what I want. This is why I try to fight for black adults. Because like everyone's like, oh, kids. And I'm like, sure, kids change their mind though. Like, I don't actually care about going to schools. Like, fine, you can learn, but not from me. You can learn from somebody who has time on their hands, who can get paid to teach kids about programming and stuff like that. That's fine. That's great. I love it. I've been to many classes. I've played many kids' games that were beautiful. Most of those kids aren't making video games now, right? Like my ex-wife's kid, she's 25. She makes she's a tattoo artist. Like she went from being an illustrator to being a dancer to being a tattoo artist back to illustration, right? Like so, but doesn't do illustration, right? Like she does tattoos. She's not. I showed her games. She was interested for a bit. No, it's not anymore. And it's like, but like, what about the kid that's 18, that's 19, that's 20, that's struggling right now, or the 30-year-old, or the 50-year-old? There's 50-year-old black people out there who are like, I want to make my own video games, and they don't know how. They don't know how to hit the market properly. They don't know how to do this. They don't know how to do that. And it's just because, again, it's not necessarily gatekept. There's information's everywhere. It's just where do you find it, right? Like, and then how do you get the people who have your back, who will show your thing in a showcase, even if other people say, oh, I don't want to show that game. Then you put it in a showcase that is exclusive for black people, and then it can get like, you know, all of the things that we pick are supposed to be the best thing, you know, like the best or just really high quality things.
That's I think that shows a lot of intention, and I appreciate that. And I know when it comes to especially youth, it's a bit of a sticky one in terms of video games. Like you said, people change their minds, but I think having that intentional process or the plan to target adults specifically who know that they want to make video games, because I think once you're past, you know, puberty and you're like, okay, I think this is what I want to do, that is more or less a person's calling. And I think being there to help and make that journey easier is something that I think more people should do. I think making the journey for others easier than it was for you is what the meaning of life should be. I think that is, I don't know if holistic is the right word, but I think that is the way the industry should be going along. And with platforms such as Black Voices in Gaming and Dames for Games, I think ones that essentially are over the ledge with their hands stretched out to get people up onto that platform with them, I think that's a beautiful thing. I respect that. Yeah, totally. So you go from Rockstar Games and you form NuChallenger. So how does the Beatdown franchise become a thing? Is that you trying to mix gaming with the hip hop with the hip hop. Is that
Kids with their
was that
hippity
phrase
hop.
back differently?
Oh.
Is that the merging of gaming and hip hop? What other influences did you use when you creating that franchise? Because there's a lot of Streets of Rage, there's a bit of Dragon Ball Z in the art style, there's a lot of influences from pop culture. Yeah, tell me more about it.
Yeah, actually, the thing that I even forgot when I was recounting games was Double Dragon on the Nintendo, very specifically that one, because the art had a lot of black in it. If you look at the arcade, it's very brown and gray because they had a lot of colors. But on the Nintendo, it has like neon purple back like skies. And also in Double Dragon, a lot of the characters were black and brown, which we thought like you would see like the same character but multiple different kinds. And you know, growing up on the streets like of the city, like I had these two other friends, we all had black parents. Actually, I didn't grow up with my black parent, but they had like we were all like biracial kids. And they'd just be like, oh, like the Bobos come out on the third level and they got their green shorts on, their lighter skin, and they were like, oh, it's the Puerto Rican of Bobos versus the black of Bobos. Like that was just because that was how like New York's very like language is very segmented. So that's how you start thinking. You're like, oh, this person looks a certain way, like they got to be Dominican or something, right? Like, and it's more like a just identifying and seeing who to identify with. And maybe also which block you shouldn't be on. So I feel like Double Dragon felt like my youth. Like it was like 80s apocalypse, black and brown people all around. And that really led like that was the art style I actually tried to emulate very heavily when I was like, let's make Treachery in Beatdown City, and I didn't have a name for it, didn't have a whole lot. I was like, let me simplify my art style. Let me go look at something that's simpler that I think I can like try to do. I started really leaning on that game very heavily, and I leaned on that game for enemy behavior design and a lot of other things. And the more I read about the game, and the more I read about the genre, and the more I studied the genre, like the amount of videos I have of like me, so that I could walk through how things happen frame by frame of just tons of games. But Double Dragon 1, I just really liked how it did stuff. Like, that's one of the first games where if an enemy is coming at you and another enemy is coming at you, one of them is going to try to flank you. That's just built into the code because that's what Yoshihisa Kishimoto, the guy who directed Double Dragon and Renegade and all those other games, like basically birthed the beat 'em up genre. See, he started because he just wanted to make action movies. And he said, I think video games will be easy. Like, it'll be fun. So he started Data East and then went to Technos and made a real big change of the world. He liked Bruce Lee movies. So he wanted to make a game that felt like a Bruce Lee movie. So it had the enemies coming around you to like grab you from behind. And like the big animation stuff so that the kicks go far and do all these things. So that really inspired just the initial bit of the game. I'd made art for a while before we actually started making a game. And then we started making the game. In Game Maker, we were finding that we weren't really happy with trying to make just a regular beat 'em up, and things just weren't coming together. Partially because of just the lack of understanding of how to make one, because especially back in like 2012, there was not a lot of knowledge of how to make a beat 'em up. Now you can go find like templates on the Unity Asset Store, and you're just seeing this rebirth of the genre, for better or worse. But back then we had to figure it out. And then it was like, oh, then I was like, man, I don't know. And then I was taking a shower and I was like, let's do a bit of like turn-based stuff like Mario RPG and this and that. So then I went in and studied how all those games work, like games I already liked, but like I like recorded them and looked at UI. And there was a game called Hybrid Heaven on the N64 that was a turn-based like kind of fighting game / wrestling game. Like it was Konami put it out. It's not a great game, but the combat is great. The rest of the game is like Konami put out, like it was kind of like supposed to be their Metal Gear on the N64. But the combat was really cool. Like it was like you could, like it was 1-on-1. and you'd kind of walk through the environment like a 3D fighter, and then when you get close, it would be like, and you could choose to like dodge or block or step around the person. And so if someone has like a roundhouse kick and you try to step to the right, they could maybe kick with their roundhouse kick and still knock you out of your defense. So I looked at that game heavily because it had just a lot of redundancy. It had like, jab left, jab right, uppercut left, uppercut, like it had left and right for literally everything. And I was just like, how do we simplify these game mechanics to make them like good and work again with like the 2D nature of a beat 'em up? And a lot of the game, it was supposed to reflect like, I don't know, like walking down the street, and if someone shouts at you, and you want to fight them, right? Like I was like, well, what if we could make a game where you could fight the people you want to fight in real life, but that you don't fight in real life? Because I'm a kid who I've only really been in one big fight, and that fight was hilarious. But it was my last week at GameStop, and a kid like got mad at me because I couldn't take back an Xbox, and he headbutted me. I'm 6'5". He was not that tall. He didn't do too much damage to me. He ran out of the store eventually. His friend tried to leave. His friend knocked my boss's glasses off, a person I love dearly. The only boss I've ever loved. And he so then I was like mad. I lunged for this kid. I put him in a full Nelson and held him for the cops. And I started laughing, and someone's like, "What's so funny, Sean?" And I was like, "I'm not gonna be here next week. Like, I'm going to Rockstar." Like, because Rockstar was literally down the street from where I was working. I was like, "This is what? It's taken 5 years. Like, I've been an asshole to so many people, and then somebody just comes out of nowhere." And like, I was actually being very nice because it was my last week. There was no skin in the game for me anymore. Right. Like, I didn't have to protect anything. I was just like, look, I can't do this. I'm terribly sorry. And this guy just got so mad, and he threatened me. So I told him to get the F out the store. And that's when I was like, that's when the fight started. But yeah, so I don't know. It kind of actually reminded me a little bit of like that moment where I stopped and I thought, like, because I was like, I don't fight people, but I think I'm gonna fight this person. And it was like a slow motion thing, like, right, like, so it. And I really love Guy Ritchie's movies with and I kind of, it's funny, as I kept working on the game, I kept noticing stuff like Guy Ritchie's movies, like with Sherlock Holmes, with how he would stop time and plan out his attacks. I was like, oh yeah, this is like what we're doing. So it just kind of kept what we were doing making sense. That game took a long time. Again, PlayStation Mobile crashed and burned. We had to do a Kickstarter. That first one failed. Second one succeeded in the course of 3 months. Like, so it was a lot of work.
Very cool.
It was brutal. Like, it was like, again, like, because it's like doing a Kickstarter when you need money and you were broke and poor is very different than you're like, oh, I'm just gonna do one. Right, like this doesn't have to happen. It was more like I'm fighting for my life. Like I had someone telling me at Avalanche, they had just opened in New York. They're like, "Oh, you should apply for a job." And I'm like, I don't want to work in AAA anymore. Like, I just got out. Like, And this was after the guy had already told me the reason why they opened an office in New York was because they could pay people less than if they were on the West Coast. And I was like, great, that's a really nice thing to tell me right before you say you should put in an application.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, just kept with tenacity, working on Treachery Beatdown City. Brought it to some PAXs. Kind of took a break in 2015 when me and my ex got separated. I had to figure out myself. Had to figure out a new place to live. I had to find other jobs to do. And also was looking for a publisher that never came to fruition. And then, a lot happened, and then we finally released it in 2020. Like, by the time it came out, I was married, remarried, had a 6-month-old child. It's a lot I was still working at Major League Baseball. I was working at Major League Baseball for 6 years. I had
Oh,
launched
wow.
several VR titles and a bunch of mobile stuff. Like I had done a lot in between starting that game because I don't feel like I knew a lot about really making a video game when I started. And I was stumbling into the like not planning well. Also, the person I was working with really didn't like taking orders, like little orders, like just email me in the morning to let me know what you're working on. Like it was kind of weird that he would be. So this was a hard time working together because also I have a habit of spiraling. If people disappear and I can't get to them, I start freaking out. I can't do work anymore. I'm like, what's happening? So this had happened a lot where I would lose weeks of work to like just no communication happening. And I'm like, is the person dead? Like, is the project going to happen? Right. We would get into really bad like arguments over stuff and it would derail everything. It was but then like getting into I think I thought about it as like one day I like sat down. I was working at Major League Baseball at the time. And I think I sat down and I was like, look, our relationship hasn't been healthy. And I'm sorry about that. Like there's been stuff you've said, stuff I've said. I would like to reset and work on getting this game out. And I think that was important because you can't just expect people to work through to the end upset, because it's gonna hold you up. It holds up. I've heard there's games I've heard that I've seen come out and be like, yo, why did that come out like that? It came out like kind of busted and this and that, blah blah. And you're like, oh, there's a person who just disappeared for 6 months and people had to fill in the gaps and they were mad about something or there's. And so and then working at MLB, I got a job as a producer. That was also was lucky because I had a teacher in college who, because the New York game scene's very small, he kept aware of me, and every time he needed a position filled, he would always just reach out. And this was the time where I was like, oh yeah, I just gotten laid off from an experienced design firm where we were working on like trying to like, we were pitching the Obama library to like make like an interesting like interactive thing. They let me go. I was the only black person in creative power control. I was a designer. They let me go while we were pitching the Obama library, and they said, oh, you don't have a whole lot of work to do, right? And I'm like, I took over the entire team. What are you talking about? Like everybody was looking to me for direction. Whatever. They did not get that contract. I think they're okay, oddly though, because they did actually get a contract to work for Major League Baseball on the new building, which was weird when I walked in and I was like, y'all worked with them on this? Like, come on. Like, why is that old job like haunting me still to this day? But yeah, so like I just needed that job and I had to learn what being a producer was like. And it was basically like make sure, think and ship, right? Like you gotta cut stuff. And so that creates like a dual nature for me where I'm like, oh, I want to do all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but you only have this amount of time. And so I have to figure out how to make myself happy and make my producer brain happy, like the dates, and say, okay, well, here's the compromise, and here's the new compromise, and here's the new compromise. That's what created like the compromise of Treasure Beatdown City went from being like 3 worlds plus to one 5-map trajectory, because I was like, we got a lot here. We got like 40 enemies. We got 5 maps. We got all the music done for these 5 maps. Let's just finish this game. Like, right? Like, I don't know how I'm going to, and that still took years to finish. And then we put out the update in 2023, which may or may not have been a good idea, but I did need to finish the idea in my head. And enough people, I think, liked the game that I was like, oh, this would be good to do.
Yeah, I think sometimes, especially in the creative world, you kind of need to get that idea out of your head so you can move on to the next one. So it's like an itch you just can't scratch sometimes. I completely get that. So with the treachery, you went on to develop Beatdown City Survivors. How has that journey been like compared to treachery? in Beatdown City?
Well, yeah, so all right. So yeah, so like between the Ultra Remix update and we were actually pitching a bunch of stuff and none of it's gotten picked up. And so at one point, again, this was like the thing in my brain where I was pitching the latest project we'd worked on. Basically, the programmer who basically came in and like became the super programmer on Treachery Beatdown City Ultra Remix, this guy Matt, who when I interviewed him, he had opinions. He actually played the whole game and then gave me like a lot of good opinions and a lot of good feedback. And I was like, oh, I gotta hire you. Like, and so he ended up like kind of supplanting our previous programmer because like it was just a better working relationship, and it didn't feel like pulling teeth anymore. And also there was just a bunch of toxicity that I couldn't deal with anymore. And so that created a new relationship where I could have someone to trust, and like we were able to make a few things quickly, but then we hit this stumbling block with this game where we were like, okay, nobody's saying yes. And then so I stopped and said, okay, we're going to cut this budget short on this thing and I was like, oh, we got all these sprites from Treasure Beatdown City. We could make a Survivors like. And then I was like, because I'm like, everybody jokes about how like Vampire Survivors could be Castlevania sprites, although they're not. And I think that's, and I was like, just the prototype, we could just do that, right? And then I had this idea for like, because I was thinking about what does that look like, right? Like and so and just to be clear, like we had to redo all the sprites. Like there is nothing like that just gets like taken over, because we made everything look more like 32-bit style, like higher color depth and everything. Because again, I couldn't just do that. I couldn't just like recolor a bunch of stuff and throw it in a game. But I started thinking about what does post Treachery Beatdown City look like? Because I was like, let's set it in the same world. Like, let's set it as a sequel story-wise, even though it's a completely different genre. So then I thought about, and there's an event in Treachery Beatdown City that leaves the lower part of the borough scarred, kind of irreparably damaged. And so I was like, like, what if we... And I was noticing all the videos that came out of New York, because I had moved out of New York at that point, and seen, the once-in-a-lifetime rainstorms that kept happening that were flooding whole train stations to the point where the train doors would open and the water would just pour onto the train.
Oh my God.
Or like you'd see, it really got to me when I saw like if the water pouring out of the walls of the subway, like you'd see like a little spout just being like, you're like, how much water is in that wall? I've never seen this before. Like I was there during Hurricane Sandy, and Hurricane Sandy has similarly irreparably damaged the city, like where they don't have enough money. They could put $1 trillion into New York and fix it, right? But they don't want to. That's the whole mayoral election right now is Andrew Cuomo, who had defunded New York City because the governor actually controls the MTA in the city, not the mayor. And he had taken a lot of money from that, being like, oh, we want to send people to ski resorts because they're hurting. And I'm like, oh, yeah, the ski resorts with 10 million people in them, right? Like 10 million people, 45% of which are black and brown. So again, it was like affecting me. And I was like, oh, well, let's make a game. Let's mess with like liquids and fluids, and like, let's like put like toxic waste everywhere, and that like water could clean that up, and that you could break open stuff and water could come out. And then I was like, oh yeah, what if we had like gasoline around cars, and you could light the gasoline on fire? And again, it was like making an action, like immersive sim style game, which was completely counter to how I was thinking about game design when I started Treachery Beatdown City. Like, I used to be mad. I was sitting in a talk by Warren Spector, who did like Deus Ex, and like he gave a talk about how water should be water and fire should be fire. And I even convinced him to back a friend's Kickstarter based on that talk via Twitter, because my friend Tyreek Plummer, who was part of the team of UFO 50, had put out a game called Catacomb Kids on Kickstarter. And that game also amazing. And he's a good person to talk to. But so, and then I was just thinking about it like that, and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, this works really well. So we made this demo in 3 months. And part of that demo, because for Treasure Beatdown City, I'd gotten to work with Open Mike Eagle. The last decade or so, my music taste changed completely. And I actually, interestingly enough, Treasure Beatdown City is a part of hip hop history, because just back in 2014, even, there's a group called Rat King, which is no longer around, but they had Wiki, who's a rapper who's still around, who had a song called "The Mayor's a Cop," right, with the Alchemist, right? And he's from New York, right? Like, he's from Upper New York, and Rat King was from New York, and they had a debut show. They had their record release party for their one record at a spot called Baby Castles, which was a games and art like venue. And so there was a concert happening, but they also had arcade machines. So like the record label actually paid people to bring their games and put them on display. So I actually got paid to be a part of this like epic thing in 2014 that people are still recounting and writing about, because it was like the photos from that, like the concert was just wild. And they had made this big art exhibit out of Baby Castles, like with buildings and all these things. So, and yeah, like just over that time, I had gotten really familiar with underground hip hop artists. And yeah, in like 2015, I fell in love with Open Mike Eagle's music, and like I saw him live and we started chatting. And after a few years, I was like, hey man, like a friend of mine was putting on a Kickstarter for a game where they were like for this fighting game. I forget. So like something Cerebral, I think. And they had like a stretch thing to get Mega Ran and Open Mike Eagle in there. And I was like, wait, Mike would be open for a game song? So let me hit him up at a concert. I like went up. I was like, hey man, would you be down to do something like this? He's like, yeah. Like, and so that's where the Beatdown City, We Gonna Whoop Your Ass song came from, which made me cry when he delivered the lyrics, because they were so beautiful. They spoke to the game so well, and I was like, man, like you like put a lot into this song. And what was it? Yeah, I don't know. That changed my trajectory forever, because I was like, oh, and everybody was like, oh, is this music in the game? And I was kind of like, not really. It's kind of the trailer for the game. Although the ending to the game is the song. Like it's actually, I think it's an amazing needle drop, because the way the game ends is it ends on this like part that you're just like, what? And then it goes Treachery and Beatdown City, and it starts with the song. And I'm like, yeah, that, because I also didn't want to pay for an ending song. But I was like, I don't think we need it. I think we should play this song. We should put the song in the game, because then people get to experience it, even if they've never heard the song, which I don't know how they wouldn't have heard the song. But and we put the whole song. We put all the songs that we had licensed from both him and Mega Ran and everybody, all the remixes. We put them. That's what the ending credits are, because they're long because of Kickstarter. There's like 1,000, 1,500 people in there.
Oh shit!
And so, so then when I was working on Beatdown City Survivors, I was like, what music do we want? And I was like, friends of it, Ringo Ishikawa, the developer, he had actually licensed like a lot of royalty-free music that's like amazing. I don't know where he finds his music. It's like so good. But he also talked about how hard it was to work with some of those artists, so there's no like soundtrack for the game. You can find it all on YouTube. But like again, it all sounds like it belongs to the game, which means you spend a lot of time sourcing this. And then when I was trying to look for like, like cyberpunky, dystopian, like horror, like royalty-free rap, I was like, this is all terrible. Like all these beats are terrible. Like some of them sound like they coming out of like Nightmare Before Christmas. Like it'd be like with like a and I'm like, this is just so basic. And like by that point, I had listened to I just was like, all right, I'm gonna put some albums on and play the game. And so I started playing Shrapnel's album, Nobody Planning to Leave. And that had just come out in 2024 when I was working on the thing, and I was like, this works. And then this other album that I hadn't given enough listen to, He Left Nothing But for the Swim-Back by Sketch 185 with the producer Jeff Marquis. I started listening to that one, and that one also had this dark, brooding vibe, and I was like, yeah, like we need that song. We need those songs. And then I shelved the game in September because I had put the songs in the game, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna look for a publisher. I'm gonna look for money because we can't allow money to, like, I'm not independently wealthy. And then in January we got the like green light that we were gonna get money for the game. And so that's when I was like, I need to talk to these guys about the music. And they were all down. Like, I just was like, hey, I hit up people. I'd actually, last year, I also worked on a piece of art of like most of the artists on Backwoods Studios, which is this underground hip hop label. It's been around for like 22 years in New York. And yeah, so like with Billy Woods, Kenny Siegel, Fatboy Sharif, Sketch 95, Curly Castro, Premrock, which are Shrapnel. I just made all this pixel art of them, and I posted on Twitter, and I posted on Blue Sky and Twitter, and it kind of shows how little culture Blue Sky has for music, because like it didn't really go anywhere. And I was like, oh, we're trying to leave Twitter, but I like went back to Twitter because that's where all these artists still are. And I posted it, and every single person who was in the thing retweeted it. And like people I didn't even follow, right? They were like retweeting it. The studio, you know, the record label followed me back. You know, these are folks I've been talking to here and there, but like I felt so much love from like the underground rap community in a year where I was getting told no left and right, and I was very uncertain in December. So I dropped it like the day I was going out to Chicago, where I live now, but I was visiting Chicago before I moved out here to go see Billy Woods with Kenny Siegel and Shrapnel perform. And yeah, so I got to say hi to these guys, right? I got to say hi to Premrock, and I was like, hey man, I would really love to talk to you more. If we get money, I want to talk to you. And then the next time we like had another meal and we talked about it, and I sent an email, and yeah, they were all like down for it. And then I like saw Kenny Siegel earlier this year, and I was like, hey man, I really love Genuine Dexterity, the album we came out with the end of last year. Could we do something with that? He was like, absolutely. Like, I love Survivors likes, and your game looks like an actual good one. So you know, it's a genre. Everyone says that it's a genre that's oversaturated. I'm like, yes, it is, and most of them are bad. Like they're like, because they're trying to make money, and they're not really thinking about whether like they're like, I don't know. I try to make a very different game using the format, because I don't make games that follow what other people do. And yeah, so and then yeah, like, and the great thing is everybody like reacts. They're just like, man, like the whole vibe of the game hits people. Like they're just like, wow, like they're sitting there listening to this music while like fighting giant cockroaches and giant rats and like lighting the world on fire in this like darkly lit city that's just out to kill you. And yeah, like I play through the game like all the time because I'm just like jamming on it. Like I'm like, oh, I gotta test this bug, and then I'm like, oh wait, I'm having a good run this time. Let me go for 20 minutes. And so I don't know. It's really freeing because I don't have to talk about the game too much to people. Like they can actually pick it up. Whereas Treacher Beatdown City, I'd be like, it's a beat 'em up, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, with turn-based RPG elements, they go. And I'm like, yeah, and you could do this, and they'll be like, sometimes they'll be like, oh, and sometimes they'll be like, well, that's not that interesting. And the people love it. The people who don't, that's fine. But this game, like, we just went to PAX West, and just, it was like a booming time the whole time, and people were just like coming back to play it. People were coming back to show people, to explain the game to them, to keep bringing people. I get people who just sit down who are like, yo, I'm obsessed with your game, can I play it again? I was like, absolutely, like, please, that's what it's here for.
Oh, that's so dope. It must be a really nice moment just to see people coming back and bringing others, the word of mouth. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you, sorry, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say one thing. Like, one of the guys, Jeff Marquis, who's a producer on Sketch 185's joint, like, he DM'd me on Instagram just when we were emailing. He DM'd me on the side, just be like, hey man, just so you know, and this is actually kind of a funny like loop thing, is he was like, yo, like, I don't play a lot of video games, but the art in your game is like speaking to a certain part of my life, like, and so I just like love everything about the look of your game. Also, I don't have many games that I play, but I play Fire Pro Wrestling Returns on the PS2. And I was like, he's like, yeah, I got to it really late, but like, I just love that game. Your game like has those vibes. And I'm like, it's so nice to, and then like the next time we talked, like I went over, like, he was just like, yo, you want to come over and like hang out, watch some sports? And I was like, yo, that sounds good. And it was like these relationships that are growing through this, like, I'm making a video game, I'm making this art, and then this mutual respect across creatives is again, it's like, it just gives me a lot, because like I feel a little locked in. I feel a little I don't know, games stuff as culture is a little boring to me sometimes, because I feel like I think there's a big like bias against like rap in games and in the culture and all that stuff. And you know, as someone who grew up being like heavy into like metal and like alt rock and stuff with some rap, and like I had Wu-Tang Forever and Busta Rhymes, some of their albums, like Fuji's a Score and stuff, but like I never found my footing in like hip hop, despite growing up with it all around me, and then stumbling into it in my 30s, and then being embraced by these folks who are not much older than me, and just falling in love and finding their stuff and just wanting to spread that to more people. That's been pretty amazing. And like every time I see another fantasy game come out, and I'm just like, come on, man, like, can we make, like, actually part of Beatdown City Survivors, the reason why we got the boot summon is because Final Fantasy 16 got announced. And I was like, what is this European nonsense that, like, why are you still on this? Like, come on, bro. Like, you went from like emo boy, like road trip, to like, just like, you like went far Euro. Like again, Final Fantasy 6 goes to the hood. They have like ragtime music, they got jazz, they got all this stuff. No, y'all went back and then started having stories about slavery and stuff, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, why are you guys obsessed with this? Like, you were doing so much more interesting stuff culturally like 20 years ago, and you're back. So I wrote on Twitter and I was like, yo, I want to make an RPG where you're in the hood and you could summon a Timberland boot and stomp somebody. And people were just like, yo, that sounds good. And I was just like, So that's where the birth of that like weapon idea came from.
I think the more games that are unimaginative, shall we say, I think the more your game stands out, because it's a piece of authentic art that is interactive, and it's taken a lot of your skill set that you've taken over the years from, the comic books, from learning how to program, and you've made it a perfect extension of yourself. And it feels very genuine, which is why it does resonate with so many people. And I think that's very cool. I think we need more games like that, more artistic games, and less slop. I wasn't surprised, but I was upset with the whole Final Fantasy 16 stuff. And then the explanation I got Just confirmed everything I needed to know. So don't care how that game performs. And I think that's a blessing and a curse when it comes to the AAA. Like, I'm sure you know way more than me, which is why you're like, I'm dipping. Um, when you're playing simply the money game, I guess what you can actually do in terms of art, in terms of video games, becomes a lot more regimented and less fun. And I think the purity, or for me, the most exciting part about video games is just the wackiness, the fun, the unpredictable nature of what you can expect. Like you mentioned Fire Pro Wrestling, which is something I never thought I would hear on this podcast. And I've never played that franchise, but I'm surprised because I grew up a massive wrestling fan, still am. But that's, again, is one of those out there, out of the box kind of franchises that really captures the imagination of the developers who just love wacky shit and consumers who want to play fun games. It's what we need. We need more unique stories, and it all ties in together because you're telling this amazing story using hip hop, using authentic art from other forms, and you're also giving back to other people who want to tell their own stories using video games as the medium, as the vehicle. It's all art, but it's also a science because, like you said, programming is math used as a language, and I think that's really good. That's also very catchy. Might use that as another tagline. So you spoke about some obstacles that you encountered while developing Treachery and Beatdown City Survivors. What's one thing you're immensely proud of?
With what?
Oh, with the games. with Beatdown City Survivors.
Well, Beatdown City Survivors, it's hard for me to say one thing. I'm just like, I'm over the moon with its existence because we made it in 3 months. Like that's our first demo. Like we made the liquid stuff that was really cool. It was like the environmental destruction that was like the core to the game. That had to be good. That was like the original prototype for the game is just like some grabbed asset. Like there's like hot dog buildings and stuff and like bright colored streets and everything, no lighting, no nothing, and like and slightly recolored sprites. But if the liquid stuff hadn't worked out, like then we wouldn't be here. And that was like something I'm proud. Like something is that like we keep running into this thing where it's like, well, hey, this thing doesn't work the way we want it to. Do we make an edge case for it? And then it's like, actually, no, let's fix everything so that it works better. Like, we have a soda can in there, and so some things that are liquid can create new, so there's like liquids and there's trails. A liquid is like something that when you touch it, you become like covered in it, basically. So if you touch water, if you walk into water, a puddle of water or a puddle of blood or a puddle of soda or a puddle of or sludge or a puddle of toxic waste, you get affected by it immediately. If you walk over a trail, so like you can go into the water and you can dash through the water and you'll take a trail with you. And so then it's cool. The trail is not permanent. And so then like if you knock down a street sign, it'll fall and it'll be like electrifying. And if it doesn't land in the water, you can actually bridge the gap and bring the water to the electricity. And then the electricity will run down the trail that you did and go towards the water if the trail, doesn't expire in that time. Cause it's all about like, so you could create like a little bomb where like you could punch a car, get like some fire to happen. Then you could dash through, take the trail all the way to another thing of gasoline. The fire will follow that. It might get you, may not. You may be able to find water to put yourself out also. And then if you take that all the way there, you'll light this other car's gasoline on fire. And over time, the car will take damage and it'll explode. So you can set up a little time bomb on your own. And so I'm really proud of that system because like every time we were like, it's not working the way it should, we opened it up to work better. And with like the soda can, it would set a puddle of soda every time, which sucked. Like it was great for enemies because it would slow down the enemies. But if it was on the ground and you were like trying to quickly go around, you would immediately get hit with the soda yourself, and then you'd be like half speed. And you're like, oh, this is terrible. And we were like, well, how about we just not make it? How about we only make it affect the enemy? And then I was like, oh, that's an edge case. I don't like this. Like, and so then we were like, oh, what if we make it do a trail? So the bomb initially hits the enemy and it hits them with soda, but it leaves a trail behind. And the trails are, if you're on top of a trail for a certain amount of time, then you'll be affected by it. So it's kind of like if you're standing still.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be standing still, but like if you stand still or if there's a long trail of something, then you can get affected by it. And then we also just recently created like monkey enemies that throw sludge at you. They like they pull it up and throw it at you, and they go like
sludge, yeah.
They go like whoop, whoop, whoop. And then you get slowed down, and we're balancing that right now. But it's but it was just like the openness of this. It was I'm proud of like I think I was a good game designer 10 years ago, but I hadn't let myself open my mind to a lot of other things. I think I was doing something very new and unique, which a lot of people didn't really understand until we really finally had the full game looking really good in like 2017, 2018. So it took a long time for people to kind of understand what we were actually working on, even with a Kickstarter, even explaining to people. But yeah, this game, just the fact that, again, we were able to pull it off in 3 months, and then we've just been building on it. Like the foundation with which we built laid so much good groundwork that it was just like, yeah, things need to be fixed here and this and that or whatever. But like that we made this 3-month demo that like I was told by the person who ultimately helped us get money was like, he played it for 4 hours and had to delete off his computer. That's cool because I play the game for long time too, and it's just nice that other people like see it. It's kind of hard to say like the one thing, but yeah, I think it's the fluids thing is what leads to a lot of the other stuff being interesting.
Of course, and again, similar to the top 5 question. I like the fact that you couldn't just pick one. Like, there's a few things in there. The fact you got the demo done in 3 months, the liquid system, which is very clever. I like that mechanic. I think it just goes to show what milestones you have reached in developing this game as well. So on that, I don't know if you can give us a date. It seems pretty early. And I don't want to force you to say anything you don't want to. But how are things looking in terms of developing the game from this point onwards to a full release? Is there an ideal release window, or is it just we're just going to keep working on it and when it's ready?
In the next 6 months, it'll be out.
Okay. Awesome.
It could be sooner, it could be later. It depends on a lot of little things that are going on in the background right now. That'll depend because I'm doing all the art. It's only 2 of us primarily. So like some of the stuff is just like speed in which I can do art. But yeah, there's a few things. But yeah, it's going to be like a game that took less than 2 years to make in the end because it was 3 months last year, and then we started back up in like February, I think, this year. So by the time it's out, it'll be like a year and a half, a little over a year and a half.
Cool. That's very cool. I think it was Nelson, Zalavia Nelson Jr. I spoke to. And he was like speaking about the importance of being able to ship a lot of games and just be able to move on from project to project. And I think not spending a super long amount of time on a game is going to be really beneficial and really cool. And I can't wait for this game to come out. And I'm sure you can't wait for this game to come out because it's another big idea that you've been able to get off. So let the people know how they can support you, where they can find you. And once again, thank you for agreeing to come on. I really do appreciate it.
Oh yeah. Thanks. Thank you for having me. Zalavir, it's funny because we're like 15 years apart in age. Like he was like 2 when I started at Rockstar, which was I started at Rockstar 18 years ago. Like I was like October 2007. So that's like, and he's like 20 some odd years old now. I think he was, yeah, it's but like it's funny, I've learned a lot from him. We both learned a lot from each other in the last few years. And even talked about this, like the crisis of trying to get games out. So yeah, I mean, we're at beatdowncity.com. Yeah, Beatdown City Survivors. It's like Beatdown is always one word. I don't know why autocorrect doesn't agree, but Beatdown City Survivors is on Steam. We got a demo out. NuChallenger.com, NuChallenger.com is our website, but it's kind of shares the same thing as BeatdownCity.com does. And I'm Shawn, SHAWN, the word double and an A on most places these days. I'm mostly not on X anymore, Twitter, whatever, but I'm on Instagram these days because again, that's where a lot of rap artists are. So it's been a place where, again, I'm able to grow community. There's none of that on Blue Sky. It sucks. Like I kind of hate Blue Sky because like you can't have a good, like I'm mad because the only music I've seen at length really talked about on Blue Sky was the new Clips album. And I'm like, that is the most mainstream thing. Like that is like, and there's like a couple of people who are trying to say things like me and a few other people like in the same year that like Billy Woods and Open Mike Eagle have album of the year contenders and all you were talking about is Clips just makes me upset. I'm like, we're devoid of culture on Blue Sky because I'm like, have you heard? Like Clips' album came out the same day as Open Mike Eagle's, and I'm pretty sure to me, Open Mike Eagle's album, not just because we're friends, but like I'm a big Pusha T fan. That album just sounds cynical. It's got a couple of really good bangers on it. I could leave the rest. Whereas Billy Woods' Gollywog, Open Mike Eagle's Neighborhood Gods Unlimited, DJ Haram's By Myself, I think. Like these are like transcendent Infinity Knives and transcendent folks. Like it's Shrapnel has 3 albums they put out. They're a duo. They're 2 people. Like it took Clips 10 years to put out 1 album. Shrapnel put out 3 albums with 3 different producers this year. They didn't take a bad producer either. They didn't take their friend. They rocked with people they respected that all have different sounds that are like next level, changing the way the industry sounds. And I'm like, wow, how'd you put out 3 albums? Like even people in music are like, how'd you put out 3 albums? But yeah, so yeah, unfortunately, I'm mostly on Blue Sky though. But it's like Blue Sky and Instagram because yeah, like I need to talk about music somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit interesting. I feel like Blue Sky, you get more love for the fact that you're an indie creator because I feel that's what I've noticed. We're getting a lot of love whenever we cover indie games. That's Blue Sky is all they love that. Yeah, Instagram is more so like the creative stuff, like music, games, art, anything that looks pretty. Like you said, there's a lot of rappers on there, so I think that's very much become the cool platform now. And then Twitter's where all the right wingers are at. So it's there's something for everyone.
Well, it's weird because like I don't see any of that on Twitter. I see my people. That's it. Like it's just more like that like I also know that like reach is constrained there. Like I don't know, trying to promote a game there just doesn't seem like great right now. Which is annoying because I had like close to 10,000 followers by the time that moron took over, and I'm like, and then I just watched like 2,000 just disappear, like because of like people leaving and and I was just like, man, like you're just getting in my way, like you're just getting in the way of like people who just trying to sell video games, and it's like, like thanks, dude. That's another $2 billion that didn't have to be spent.
He said it on the whim as well. That idiot. It's a whole. literal waste of time discussing it. But yeah, some people have more money than sense. Yeah, once again, thank you to Shawn Alexander Allen for coming on and dropping knowledge. I definitely have homework to do when it comes to listening to music. But I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and make sure to check out Beatdown City Survivors. There is a link right now in the chat. Make sure you go over to Steam and wishlist that game. It's a very kind thing you can do. And of course, NuChallenger.com, new spelled as NU. Make sure you go over there and show your support. This podcast will be available on other podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'm going to put a link to our next games night. We have been holding these every month on the first Thursday of each month. And this will be our fourth one on the 2nd of October over at Zombie Games Cafe. Make sure you check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, Streamcast _. There's a bunch of other links that you can check out on our main page. Subscribe right here on YouTube if you're watching live, or if you're watching on demand, because that goes a long way. And we will next be live on this platform on Monday, the 22nd. And I will be interviewing Fur Factor, covering his game Toss Down.
Oh,
and
another homie.
I mean, I hit the jackpot, and I noticed you mentioned Tyreek earlier in the episode. He will also be on the Streamcast by the end of the month. So make sure come back here, subscribe, tap that bell, set it to all, so you don't miss when that episode goes live, because it's all greatness coming onto the platform right now. But until next time, please take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Stay safe. We'll see you on the next Streamcast.